Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the final day of a Nutcracker tournament. Today we will have 4 more games in the rapid time control, and to remind you, in the main tournament, Kings versus Princes, it's all square. Both teams have the same score, so youngsters did really well in the first day of rapid yesterday, so managed to level the score after the classical time control. So as you can see, it's 24 points for each team. Kings ended up leading by +4 after the classical part, but yeah, as you can see, now the score is level. Queens, however, are still leading versus Princesses, so it's 26-22. I think, so the distance between two teams got a bit shorter compared to classical part once again, so Princes won the rapid part, they won, but let's see what's gonna happen today. Right, and the games are started, and compared to yesterday's days, it's same pairs obviously, but they will play with colors reversed. So I think we can go to the playing hall and check what will happen. So we have Shirov playing Daniil Yufa, we have Boris Gelfand against Andrei Yesipenko, Boris having the white pieces, Artemyev is white against Shahryar Mamedyarov, and Grigorio Parin is white against Sergei Rublevsky. Right, the games have started. Well, I'm guessing we shall see the view from the playing hall soon. Well, I think we have some technical issues. Can't really show the playing hall. Good afternoon, everyone. It seems we had some technical glitches, but hopefully from now on everything will work tip-top. So once again, to remind you, that's the final day of a Nutcracker tournament. On this final day, 4 rapid games will be played. In the main event, in the battle between Kings and Princes, the score is level. Going to the last day, Princes managed to win the rapid portion yesterday with quite a huge score, with +4 to level the overall score in the match. Right, so just quickly, let's try to catch up with what has happened. Shirov against Yufa. We have, for the first time in this tournament, we have Alexei Shirov playing against Daniil Yufa with the white pieces. That's been 2 black games for Shirov. Both of them finished in a draw, in, well, very long theoretical discussion in Botvinnik's So this time it's a Caro-Kann, and once again a very principal line which requires a lot of knowledge from the both players. Queen b6, knight c3, well, black accepts the pawn sacrifice on b2. Yeah, up to this point, I guess it's still well known. Bishop b4, knight b5, bishop to a3, rook b1, queen c2, and rook b3, which is... I'm not sure if it's the main move here. At least it seems to be a bit of a surprise for Daniil Yufa, who has spent some time. He went knight e7, now a check on d6 happens. King goes to f8, knight b7. So the rook protects the c3 knight, so the other knight is free to move. Knight b7, okay, and Daniil Yufa is thinking again. Right, in the other games, the game on our screen is Artemiev against Mamedyarov. To remind you, yesterday Artemiev won quite convincingly with the black pieces against Shahryar Mamedyarov, so it's really a principal battle. Shahryar, I believe, wants to take the revenge. Well, not that the opening is really good for that, so 4 knights d4. Shahryar didn't go bishop b4, but preferred to go bishop c5, which kind of keeps more pieces on the board. Bishop d3 castles, rook to e8, bishop g5 h6, and after bishop h4, rook to b8 was played. So, well, too early to say something as for the moment. b3, I guess, allows black to play bishop d4. And then, yeah, you have to watch out, because after queen d2, black seemingly has this maneuver: takes on e4, and then the queen is hanging on c3 and the bishop on h4 is hanging. I know, hang on, that's still better for white, of course. Yeah, bishop c7. Kind of forgotten about bishop c7. Okay, Boris Gelfand has the white pieces against Andrei Yesipenko. Boris made a draw in the classical time format, and I think he has lost with the black pieces in the rapid format. An English opening was played here, so-called McKenna's variation. And after d5, yeah, e5 is the main move. Boris went for capture and d5, after which black is no longer recommended to go d4. So knight e4 is the main move. Knight f3, takes, bishop e7. So you get the position in spirit of... well, you can have something similar from the Petrov, you can have something similar from the Vienna as well. d4, c5, bishop e2, knight c6, Paul scuttled. And then Gelfand has taken on c5. Somewhat surprising move, to be honest, and especially seeing the fact that Boris is thinking. I guess he's already out of the book. Bishop g5, queen a5 followed quickly from Andrei Yesipenko. Obviously, white can't take on d5 because of bishop f2. Not that he wants to take on d5. I guess queen d2 is the move. Queen c2 played by Boris Gelfand. Yeah, maybe, well, keeping in mind some ideas were, well, to attack h7. Rook comes to d1, I assume, and as well, queen on c2 stops black bishop from being developed to f5. Okay, quite a complex position. Yesterday it wasn't all that comfortable for Boris, I have to say. I mean, he was getting good positions, but he was constantly misplaying them in the time trouble. I mean, that was terrible for him, really. Half a point only was scored by Boris Gelfand. Bishop to g4. Not necessarily to take on f3, which is one of the ideas, but not clear if the main one. I think the main thing black wants is to play bishop h5 and then to put the bishop on g6. All right. Yeah, so bishop g4 was played. Okay, so bishop g4 with the idea, as I said, to play bishop h5 and bishop g6. Right, Boris is thinking again. He's down to less than 10 minutes that early in the game, and we have one more game on the fourth board. Oparin against Wróblewski. Wróblewski was the other player who was not performing that well, not only in the classical but in rapid as well. I think it was half a point only Sergei Wróblewski scored in classics, and then it was 1 out of 4 in rapids. Really the worst result for the Kings team, and I guess the worst result overall. So let's see how it goes for him today. Another Taimanov Sicilian, knight f6, queen f3, a modern way to play this position. Bishop b4, knight takes c6, bc6, and queen to g3, applying some pressure on g7. Knight h5, queen goes here, g6, castles, queen a5, bishop to d2, rook b8, bishop to c4, and Sergei Wróblewski castle short. So black obviously has a lot of control in the center, especially if he will play d7, d5. Yeah, very comfortable position it seems. On the other hand, he still has to mind his king's position. Because with g7, g6 move being played, it's a lot of dark square weaknesses around the black king. Okay, and I think we got to be back to Shirov Ufa after after bishop a5, knight b7. No, that was the position. Yeah, knight takes b7, bishop b6, knight d6, bishop to a5. Alexei Shirov repeated the position a couple of times, then went for bishop f3, h6, h4. Particularly h4 is not. I mean, it's not such a. It's not such an easy task to say what h2, h4 does, because I mean, if black is supposed to play g5 here, I'm not sure if it is black's idea, but if black's supposed to play g5 here, I don't really think h4 does anything to stop g5. I mean, if black wants to play g5, he still can. Well, the problem for black is to establish the coordination, right? So if the king will be in time to h7, I guess black is doing just fine, but it's not that easy to achieve, right? It's not that easy to achieve. Yeah, I'm actually considering g5, so that if takes, well, not sure really. Queen e3 perhaps, but then it's g4, bishop d1, and even an endgame should be. Ah, no, there is no endgame for black. Queen d3. Ah, no, it does work. Yeah, I got confused a bit. Queen d3 does work because after knight f5, black has a check on h1, followed by a check on f1, followed by knight takes f5. Black's position looks absolutely fine here, and this check is not winning the bishop because of king g7, of course, and in this case it's actually black who is winning, because yeah, rook h8 comes always decisive effect. I guess bishop g4, a check, some bishop b6. I mean, it does look very, very dangerous for white. Does look very, very dangerous for white, and g5 was just played. Maybe white should not really take here. Yeah, maybe white has to play queen e3 immediately, because now this line works perfectly for white. Yeah, bishop d1, queen d3, white takes on f5, black will have to take back with the queen. I'm still not sure though how much of an advantage white has in this case. Knight b5 apparently heading to d6 or d4. Maybe it's still better for white. It's one of those positions when you have to be Alexei Shirov to understand something. Yeah, we are shown Wróblewski and Oparin, so let's see what has happened here. After castle short, Oparin went bishop b3, prophylactically moving the bishop from c4, so it's not getting under d7, d5, I guess. Wróblewski has played c5. And after e5, he has played c5, c4. So he wants to make sure he takes the central pawn, which he does. So white has to capture c4. I'm guessing maybe queen takes c4 is the move. Yeah, exactly. This is what Oparin ends up playing. Queen takes e5. Now the question is if g4 is any good. Obviously, the idea is that if black moves the knight, white plays bishop f4 and then takes the rook on b8. But after g4, you have to watch out for d5. I mean, this is sharp again. d5, white goes queen d3, and then black might even go knight e2, knight f4 with some knight e2 ideas. Knight f6 also looks solid. Now, I mean, if black gets something like this, so that means a white's bishop is somewhat out of play. Altogether looks really, really nice for black. So let's see. Let's see what is going to happen. Let's not forget we have the other tournament here. So queens versus princesses, where again all 4 games are in play. All of them are very entertaining. To remind you, princesses, the younger team, they are still fighting, trying to level the score. Yesterday, well, they've managed to shorten the distance which the queens got after the classical portion. So princesses won the yesterday's rapid day, but today they still have to cover a gap of 4 points. Right, so what has happened in Wróblewski's game against Oparin? Oparin has played rook h2 e1, attacking the queen. So first to see where the queen is going. I guess black is absolutely fine trading the queens here. And let's go back to Shirov and Yufa, because Shirov went for the line I was kind of skeptical about. What I can say that Mamedyarov is unlikely to win against Artemiev. Artemiev is, I mean, somewhat better. We can even say this. That's the position. Artemiev is even somewhat better with, I'd say, half an extra pawn, right? Black's double pawn on f-file doesn't do anything, while white has 3 versus 2 on the queen side. Normally, of course, has to be a draw with opposite colored bishops, but still some unpleasant. I mean, if it's unpleasant for anyone, it's for Mamedyarov. So I guess he will have no difficulties making a draw, but I don't see him winning this one. Right, and let's go back to Shirov and Yufa, because yeah, after g5, Shirov has taken here, went queen e3, so it does look like this forcing line is about to happen, right? g4. Well, there is rook c1, which is somewhat different, or bishop e2 with the idea to play rook c1. Well, actually, yeah, the queen is somewhat restrained here on c2. I guess bishop b6, there is, yeah, not sure, because there is bishop b6 as well, as an idea, right? Well, white is, I mean, immediately white's gonna take on g5, so you can, g4 is played, g4 is played. Now, if white goes like this, it's queen d3. Not quite sure. I think the fact that the rook is hanging on f1 is really, really unpleasant for white. I mean, the fact that black has the idea of playing rook h1, queen f1 with a check, right? Which works, for instance, in this line with knight f5. It works perfectly in the line with knight. I don't know, knight d5 was never a move, right? In knight d5, I don't know, maybe queen d5, rook b5, maybe something for white, right? Queen a2, bishop b3, who knows? But it's not, just what I want to say, that it's not an option at all as long as black has this trick, right? A check and knight takes d5. Let's see. It looks like black is getting good position here. Looks like black is getting good position. No time issues as well, I guess. So it's a bit more time for Shirov, but no big time troubles so far. Well, Gelfand against Yesipenko had developed a bit. After bishop g4, Boris went bishop f4, protecting the e5 pawn. h7, h6 was played to my surprise. Rook a to b1. Queen goes back to c7. Queen was kind of misplaced on a5. Bishop g3. Queen to d7, threatening bishop f5. Rook f d1, d6, h3, and bishop e6. So black doesn't want bishop f5 because then it's bishop d3, and if the bishops are getting traded, the d5 pawn becomes a target. So black simply goes back to e6. Now what white would really like to achieve is to get a battery on this diagonal, but with queen being in front of the bishop. So bishop d3 doesn't do much. Bishop d3 doesn't really do much, but if white would somehow manage to put the queen, say on well, something like this happens, for example, queen goes to e4, then bishop goes to d3. That would have been something, but of course, in this case, bishop f5 is very, very unpleasant. White loses an exchange, and I'm not sure if he has enough compensation. Well, he probably doesn't. Boris goes bishop g3 to h4, so this way he controls the d8 square, and potentially he might want to play g2, g4, just increasing control over f5. We are shown Artemiev and Mamidyarov. I think it's got to be a draw. Got to be a draw now. Already one pair of rooks being exchanged, and let's see what happens with the other. We are switched to a ladies section. Let's see what happens here, because I'm guessing there were some very... that's a well-known line of Grunfeld, by the way. That's a very well-known line in Grunfeld, knight e5, and here, if I'm not mistaken, h4 was the move which was played in one of the games of Viktor Korchnoi, I guess. And there is a funny way black can lose here. If he makes the move he made in the game, queen d7, he loses a piece after not such a trivial capture on b6. So it's, well, practically never you want to exchange your ducks for a bishop, but here you just win the knight with f4. Right, white went queen b3 instead, queen d7, castles long, black has played a5. It's a very, very sharp position, this one, I have to say. For the time being, it looks, black's chances to get to white's king look somewhat more realistic, because a4, a3 is already something unpleasant. Right, while white is nowhere near to get to black's king. Well, it has to be said, Elizaveta Solzhenkyna is in a time trouble once again. She left herself, after 13 moves, she left herself with only 3.5 minutes. Well, Maltsevskaya against Strutinskaya, a very sharp Benoni. Very sharp Benoni we have. Then Dimitrova against Zayats, I guess has to be... has to be a draw if black is precise, but still somewhat unpleasant. And Goltseva against Kovalevskaya. Some sort of... how do we call this one? The Benko Gambit, right? And once again, a Benko Gambit with e6 instead of d6. I think that was precisely the same line which Kovalevskaya has played in the classical chess. In game 1, if I'm not mistaken, where white was reacting in a different way, because here, as far as I know, this is considered to be acceptable for black. And especially I didn't like queen d1, because you kind of want to control e4, but maybe Yeah, I thought queen f3 would have been better, but then it's knight b4, knight is heading to c2 and d4. Yeah, altogether looks like black has a decent compensation already. Queen d1, knight e4. Now white goes queen f3, f5, bishop to f4 and g5. Well, very, very aggressive play by Ekaterina Kovalevskaya. The bishop drops back to d2. Now the f5 pawn is hanging. Not quite sure what's gonna happen here. Let's see this game, Gelfand against Yesipenko, because it did develop into something interesting, I guess. After bishop h4, rook a to c8 was played by Andrei Yesipenko, queen d2, queen goes to c7 and rook to e1. Here, interestingly enough, I would claim that black actually can take on e5. Because if this happens, white wins an exchange on c8, but the feeling is that black has enough compensation for an exchange. So it's a bishop and a pawn plus some weaknesses for white. And I could probably find a better square for the queen. Maybe f5 would have been better. Right, bishop c8, rook c8. So even here I believe black to have a decent compensation for an exchange. But he's no way forced to do so. He's no way forced to do so. Even though if he's not taking, white might find a time to play bishop a6 and then knight d4. Both players getting shorter on time. Boris Gelfand is down to 4.5 minutes. His opponent has a bit more than 5. Interestingly, quite a slow development in most of the games. I mean, from the very quick start, it was a very quick play in the opening, but then, you know. Okay, and we are shown Artemiev against Mamedyarov, and I'm wondering if what Mamedyarov does is correct, because he kind of wants to make a draw at once, because now I think you have little problems just kind of passing with black, but knowing Shahryar Mamedyarov, he's a proactive player. He wants to, you know, to have an impact on the game. So he plays h5, and you turn this pawn into a weakness potentially. Bishop e2, and now he could have gone h4, but I think it kind of increases white's chances, and even the endgame without the rooks wouldn't be all that clear, because white has one passed pawn and potentially the other one on the opposite wing on the queen side. So even this, I would not be 100% sure if it's a draw. Mamedyarov plays rook d5. Well, maybe that's fine, but look, h4, and now you will have to care about this pawn till the end of the game. White, of course, has weaknesses of his own, so it's not that straightforward, but still I would say black kind of made his task a bit more difficult, and made his task achieving a draw a bit more difficult. Wonder if the king belongs to h6 now. Yeah, that's what Shahryar Mamedyarov decided to do. King will go to g7, then to h6, at least to free the rook from, you know, from protection of an h5 pawn. Let's see how Oparin Wróblewski develops. Yeah, after those exchange of the pawns, queen c4, queen e5, rook he1 was played. Wróblewski went queen to g7, g4, d5, queen to e2, knight f6, and then the bishop goes gets relocated to e5. Rook b6, bishop to e5. Black has to unpin himself, so it's good thing for black that he has a check from h6. Knight to d7, bishop d4, and bishop c5 played by Sergei Wróblewski. To be honest, once again, I have a feeling that he has misplayed the position, and white should be better here. Knight a4, bishop takes d4, rook takes d4, played quickly. I mean, black has more pawns in the center. Black has potentially a strong center, but it's really, really hard to move the pawns, right? So now the rook is attacked. If rook goes back to b8, I guess white plays f4, wants to play g5. Black's bishop on c8 is quite passive. Yeah, so in the long run, I think white's position is better here. He might want to find the better square for this rook, Sergei Wróblewski. Maybe putting it on c6, interestingly enough. Right, so let's see what else do we have. Yeah, a lot of moves played in Shirov u5 and yeah, let's see. Really a lot of moves was played in Shirov u5. After queen e3 g4, Shirov went rook c1, forcing black to go to d3. A trade happened, bishop g4, rook h4, bishop f3, bishop to c4. And it's even equal number of pawns. Rook b7, bishop a6, and Shirov came up with another combination, which is rook takes e7, knight takes d5, e d5, knight f5 check, and knight h4. So this way he wins the pawn, because the e5 pawn cannot be taken immediately. In case of king e5, rook c5 is strong, attacking the bishop and the pawn on d5. But black plays bishop b6, and you know, now looking at white's position, I mean, white's pieces are somewhat disorganized. White pieces are somewhat disorganized, and if white will not win this pawn in kinda next couple of moves, which I don't see how it's done, yeah, then black might be better. I mean, he can play. I mean, black is one move away from being better. Just move the rook, move your rook somewhere, and you have a very comfortable position. Rook d8, for instance, and then black has two bishops. The e5 pawn will sooner or later fall. I'm not sure at all what's the evaluation. It might be that Daniil Yufa is simply better in this one. So far I don't really see where the kings, the older team, will score. So it looks like the scenario of a previous day will be repeated, at least in round one. So I guess Mamedyarov is going to hold for a draw. But Shirov is somewhat worse, it seems, despite him having an extra pawn. Well, a lot of stuff happened in Wróblewski's game. Oparin is still on 3 minutes. Wróblewski is down to 2.5. After rook d4, rook c6 was played. f4, a5, and it turns out that Oparin has absolutely different idea about this position. Not g5, but f5 he plays. Tries to open up the center. Bishop h6, queen to d1. Yeah, which makes a lot of sense, because this bishop is kind of blocked out from the game, right? The bishop on b3. But if black starts to react to f5 by either playing e5, taking on f5, this bishop comes to life. So it's a very, very unpleasant pressure on black's position. I mean, you practically cannot move the e6 pawn, and then if you don't, white takes on e6, and you'll be exposed to any kind of combinations here. Knight f6, f takes e6 has to happen, I believe. F takes e6 has to happen. And I really, really like white's position here. I mean, f e6, and then, who knows, maybe a move like a3. Maybe a move like a3. And for instance, if black takes here, I think g5 is quite strong. After knight e4, there might be some captures on d5. Well, rook d5, for instance. If f d5, it's queen d5. Then after this move, simply queen c6. I think black's king is just too weak. Well, we can and probably should go back to Gelfand and Yasipenko. The game develops, I mean, probably the slowest out of them all by the number of moves, because at least the time on the clock for the plays. It's a bit more than 2 minutes for Yusupenko. It's a bit less than 2 minutes for Gelfond. And what have we seen? Bishop f4, queen d7, right? Something like that. Bishop b5. So a lot of moves with black queen here. Knight d4, a6, bishop f1, b5. Yeah, it turns out that if white takes the bishop, black happily takes with the pawn, and then, I mean, black has kind of an ideal French. White is pretty much stuck in terms of an active play. So Boris decided to go rook b to c1, hoping for black to take on d4 so that the rook is getting some play on the c file. Queen d7, rook c to d1. C to d1, rook b c8, knight b3, bishop b6. Finally, Boris goes bishop d3. So I think he will end up building this battery with bishop b1, queen d3. So now finally he will organize g2, g4 as well. Yeah, that's pretty sharp one. Well, I don't really like what Mamedyarov is doing, if you ask me. I mean, he does everything to get in trouble against Artemiev, even though probably the position is still closer to equality. Okay, and Wróblewski finally blunders. I think we have to show this. After knight f6, fe6, fe6. Funny enough, rook takes d5 happen immediately. Knight d5, bishop d5. Now if black takes, white ends up being 2 pawns up. Even though with some back rank issues there might be some chances. It's the bishop versus the knight, so if black is in time to snatch a pawn on h2 somehow, then there might be chances, but let's not forget black king is very, very weak. So, what has happened here? Wróblewski went rook d6, bishop e6, he has taken on e6. Okay, so now he has rook f1, for instance. Is that a chance? Like rook f1, rook e1, a trade here, and queen h2. That's what he ends up doing. Queen h2. So using the fact that the back rank mate is there, white can't really win the bishop on a6, but still looks very, very suspicious. Knight c5. That's annoying because it's really tough for black to find the good square for the bishop. You can't play bishop c4 because of b3, and when the bishop retreats, white collects yet another pawn. So Wróblewski ends up playing bishop c8. Well, that's an interesting moment because now white can try b4. A very concrete move. Making some space for the king, so if black takes over here, it's a check and a capture. It's a check and a capture on c8. So black will probably end up capturing g4, and then, you know, white's pawn structure gets spoiled, but the a pawn is already almost there, right? White will put the queen on c3, and then we'll start moving the a pawn. So it's very sharp. We are shown the game between Shirov and Yufa. I think Shirov has found the way, right? After b6 he has spent some time and went for a4. King takes, a5. Now it turns out you can't take because of rook c5 once again. Bishop d4. A check is given. King to f6, rook to d1. And black ended up playing bishop e5 because I guess in case of king e5, white would have taken on d5 and play knight f3, winning a pawn. I mean, it's still unclear if white is entitled to win the game here, but he's the pawn up. So Yufa decided to keep a pair of bishops. He still sacrifices the pawn on d5, but yeah, it's pretty sharp now. Bishop e5. If white takes on d5 with the bishop, I guess some move like rook b8 has to be considered. White should probably not risk much, but as well, I think it applies for black as well. I don't really see black being in trouble. Right, quite a lot of things happen. Well, actually, the more I look, as I said, the more I look, the more I dislike the position of Shahryar Mamedyarov. I mean, he's probably still keeping it, but lately he created himself a lot of weaknesses, so, well, will be really surprising if he ends up losing this one. Oparin against Wróblewski. I think Wróblewski is getting under attack, and I don't really see the way now to protect against knight f6. What has happened after queen c8? A check followed and another check. Sergei Wróblewski had to go to g8, was absolutely forced. White has played a4, and after bishop g4, I think bishop g4 once again. I mean, if you don't take the pawn, first of all, the bishop is in no, it's just bad. Takes, and knight e4, there is no defense, it seems, against knight f6 and queen f8. So really bad position for Sergei Wróblewski, it seems. So the nightmare continues. The youngsters will win this round. Let's see. So Shirov is up a pawn, but as I said, I don't see him winning. Mamedyarov is, well, seriously worse. And let's see what happens there, because both players are very short on time. Gelfand against Yasipenko. Well, some changes happen. Bishop c7, queen d2, exchange on h2 happens, and queen check to c7. So, well, black should be absolutely fine. He'll take back the pawn on c3. He'll take back the pawn on c3. You can try queen d6, but then I guess sooner or later you'll still lose your extra pawn, and it all ends up being 3 versus 2. As I mean, the best thing for white could be like 3 versus 2 on the king side, which is normally not enough. To win. Boris Gelfand is thinking. Well, Wróblewski still found the way to fight, or not really. No, he loses the bishop, a check here, queen d5, b3, and Grigory Oparin wins yet another game against Sergei Wróblewski, making it 3-0. So, well, a terrible score for Sergei. And the princes, for the first time in this match, they are leading. I think, yeah, we are shown some games finished in the ladies section as well. Elizaveta Solozhenkina has won against Tatiana Grabuzova. I think it had something to do with the clock. Strutinskaya, Maltsevskaya, I think the game has finished, but I don't really know the result. And yeah, the other two are still in progress. Alright, so let's go back to men's section. Shirov Yufa's got to be a draw, I guess. Well, this is what has happened. Shirov went to take the pawn on a7. Black has taken over here, gave a check on f1 and a check on f2. Shirov finally takes it. A check, king e1, bishop a7. Now, I don't see white winning this one. I don't really see white winning this one. I mean, it's simply impossible against two bishops. So got to be a draw, I believe. Mamedyarov against Artemiev, that's the position. Now, I don't think Mamedyarov is going to lose, but who's going to win for the kings? I don't really see anyone winning. Gelfand, I guess he might have a worse position. Might have a... What happened? What just has happened? Yeah. Daniil Yufa found the way to make an immediate draw. Bishop to b8, and Alexei Shirov has taken on a6. Very interesting. So in this matchup, we had 3 draws, 1 in classics and 2 in rapid, all of them being very well fought, all of them being entertaining. 1.5-half. The princes are in the lead. So let's see what happens in the other games. Artemiev, Mamedyarov. That's the position. Both players being well, playing on increment, rook e5, and then actually a5 and h4 are both under attack. You have to move the bishop and you probably lose the pawn. Yeah, Mamedyarov really misplayed it seems. Let's see what happens in Gelfand-Yasipenko. That's the current position. Rook d2. So Boris wants to keep both rooks on the board. Bishop e6. But how he's planning to win this one, I don't really believe it's possible. Well, he's obviously hinting at 4 rooks endgame, where he will have 2 rooks on second rank. Two rooks on 7th rank. Yeah, now they're repeating the moves actually. Now they're repeating the moves. And let's see what happens in Mamedyarov's game. Let's see what happens in Mamedyarov's game. I think... Yeah, Boris Gelfand makes a draw, by the way, so it's 2-1. Boris Gelfand makes a draw, and then it's a lively discussion with this young guy. Mamedyarov has given a pawn on f7. Yeah, so in this position, he decided rook g7 would have been too passive, so he goes rook f3, check, king to e8. So let's see. Doesn't seem to be possible to keep the f4 pawn alive, right? So if you go f5, black gives a check on f4, then probably goes rook c3, attacking the bishop and threatening h4, h3. Or maybe gives a check. Yeah, so now we will see what's gonna happen. No, Artemiev just played king g2. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. And Mamedyarov gives a check on g3, so does it mean that he's playing for a win? Does it mean that he's playing for a win? I don't really understand, because he could have taken on f4, right? Could have taken on f4, but he decided not to do that. So he gives a check on g3, and white has played king f2. Rook c3 is played, where black is threatening to capture the bishop. Rook f5. Okay, now the h-pawn starts moving. Well, actually, it's kind of one of those positions when you ask who's playing for a win, and the answer is both. h3, rook e5 check, king f8. So king can go all the... well, rook a5 taken by Artemiev, which is a risky business, I have to say, but he has a check on a8. Doesn't matter what the discovered attack will be, he has a check on a8. And I think that this must have been the move which Mamedyarov has blundered. Must have been the move Mamedyarov has blundered, because it's not clear. Okay, h2. So now after rook h5, at least black will be able to take on f4. Still got to be a draw, but now Mamedyarov has to be very careful. And actually I don't see just yet how he's... rook f5 played by Artemiev. King to e7. King g2. So the f4 pawn is protected, the h2 pawn is attacked. Yeah, it turns out this h2 pawn does absolutely nothing. So I guess it's even possible that Mamedyarov is going to lose. Rook h3, king h1. Rook to h4. Now white has a check on f7 and f5 if he wants to keep all 3 guys on the board. The problem, however, might be that the h2 pawn is very dangerous in this case. So a check, king goes here, f5, and black will play some sort of bishop f4, protecting the pawn and then threatening rook g4. Well, it's very sharp, and Mamedyarov at least needs to make a draw here, because, you know, losing 2-0 will be, I mean, losing -2 will be a bit too much. a5 played by Artemiev in this position. It's still fine for Mamedyarov to take on f4, I guess. No, but if he takes with the rook, the trick is that if he takes with the rook, white can give a check. White won't really exchange the. But white. Okay, he takes with the bishop. A6. A6. And the trick is that in case of rook g4, now he completely lost. Yeah. So he has blundered that. After rook g4, white can take, go a7, and after rook f8, it's bishop d5, promoting to a queen then, and yeah, black is not in time. The queen, so disastrous loss by Mamedyarov, and what we have, +2 for the youngsters, and after this round they're leading the match. So it will be really, really hard, and it's scandalous. It's the first time I think the kings will lose the match. It's still too early to say that, but really, really looks bad. Well, in the ladies section, no draws so far. The younger team, the princesses, leading +1. Solozhenkina won against Grabuzova, Maltsevskaya won against Strutinskaya, Kovalevskaya has won against Koltseva, so that's the last game in progress. Dimitrova has an absolutely winning position against Elena Zayats. I don't even know if there is any... if there are any difficulties here. Rook e6, king goes here, and now she didn't go there. I thought that could be the problem, that the king is stalemated. So now, for instance, case of h6, you just give billion checks. But black went king h7 and simply resigned after king f5. So 3-1 altogether for the younger ladies. They've managed to shorten the distance between, so it's not that many extra points for the queens left. Well, and the round is over with only 2 draws, so a lot of fight, which is very normal for the rapid chess. I think we go for